you know. I started walking later because easier to see and it takes them longer. Yeah. Like, you know, obviously you can't imagine how
Yeah, I think I don't want that running right here. I think 11 and a half months at the water. That one?
Just go from beginning there. Yeah, I think it is one of them too. I get confused with that many.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to introduce Giulio, you pronounce this one?
Girolamo.
Girolamo, who is the representative of a company called James Hardie. James Hardie supply lots of building products. I'll let Giulio run through those with you this afternoon. But a lot of these products are the products that we have been looking at as either external cladding options or internal lining options for your projects. So I'll hand over to Giulio. Thank you very much for coming in.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. So, yeah, my name's Giulio Girolamo. I represent a company called James Hardie. James Hardie, when we go through it, are quite an old business. I've been with the company now for close to 5 years. I took over from a gentleman by the name of Phil Blundell. I'm actually originally from Adelaide, from South Australia, so I commute up here periodically. It's actually just worked out really well with the travel that I had on this week, that I was able to come in and have a quick chat with you guys and give you an update and an overview, I guess, on our business, what we do. We do a lot of work with designers, so we're often catching up with architects, designers, you know, other types of specifiers. It could be a builder doing a D&C, so a design and construct, and just helping them either create some design flair, getting away from traditional methods of construction, using more lightweight. Obviously, there's a lot more versatility. We have a number of products that we use internally and externally, which we'll sort of go through in not great detail because we have a lot of products. So if we had to go through each and every one of them, you would kill me because I'd ruin your Friday night. So we won't go through all of them. At the end, and throughout, obviously, it's a small group, so at any point, stop me, just make it interactive. I get tired of hearing myself constantly going on, and then I don't know what part you want me to go into more detail with, so just feel free to, you know, yell out and say, hey, explain that or skip that, and we'll sort of tackle it that way. After today, we've got a system or a portal that is called an Accel, which is not Excel, it's Accel with an A, so A-C-C-E-L. Not sure why we made it so similar to Excel, because it confuses a lot of people. But essentially what is on there is all the intellectual property of James Hardie. We've got all the CAD details that you can drop and drag. It's Revit, CAD Assist, SketchUp compatible. Really handy for you guys if you're doing projects and you need some particular details rather than reinventing the wheel. This allows you to drop and drag. So I'll quickly get you on there, and then if you need user rights, which I believe you'll be quite interested in, then it is a portal that I need to provide you guys with login details to. So I think the way to do that, there's two options. One, I can have a generic one for the university that you guys can all openly use if and when you wish to. Or B, I'll get Sandra to send me an email with your full names, email addresses, everything like that, and then I would just manually put in each of you into the portal. So I'll leave it up to you guys whether you want just one for everyone or whether or not we do it a different way. So I'll get into it. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming. Being an ex-university student, I know now it's very easy to do this from home in your lounge, but I think there is a lot more value when you come and get stuck into it in the classroom and exchange ideas. So well done for being here, especially on a Friday. But yeah, we'll jump through it. I expect it'll take, depends how long it takes to go through some of the products and how many questions you have, but we should be able to do this in about half an hour pretty easily. And then we'll have some questions, answers, and go on Excel after that. But yeah, we'll just see how we go. How I guess we'll run it is I'll go through a few things about James Hardie, who the company is, a little bit about lightweight construction. Just bear in mind that this presentation, I sort of pulled it together a little bit this morning. And secondly, coming from SA, a lot of this a lot of the early parts of this preso around the construction types will be more specific to what we do down south and on some of the eastern coast, on some of the east coast. But of course, you guys are in a cyclonic region in Darwin. There are a lot of variations to the way things need to be done as a result of that, things that I'm still quite green on. Coming from SA, I've only been in Darwin for 9 months. So, you know, I'm keen to get your feedback, or actually this is what we do here, because I'm learning too. But yeah, just understand that if there are a couple of things don't seem quite right, it's probably because we're referencing down south where timber's commonly used, and so forth. So we'll go through some of that, the benefits, the sustainability of the products, and the impact they have on the environment, and obviously the designs, and then we'll go through some product portfolio and give you a bit of a look and feel at what exactly it is we make and the sort of looks that we go for when we're changing the way, I guess, people build homes and obviously commercial buildings as well. Important to note that our business is predominantly residential in terms of the product portfolio. So whilst we have a commercial division, a lot of our products, the vast majority, are designed for residential applications. So we'll get stuck into it. So James Hardie, old company, started in Melbourne, believe it or not, so it's an Australian company, back in 1888, which makes it, you know, close to a 130-year-old business. We are globally employing about 3,100 people. 80% of our market's actually based in the US now. They've got a huge lightweight cladding division over there, and we've got manufacturing plants all over the world. You can probably see on the map some of the areas. All of our products that come from, that are supplied in Australia come from Australia. So we've got 2 manufacturing plants. One's in Rose Hill and one's in Carroll Park. So that's Queensland and Sydney. We've just spent $90 million, not me, obviously, but the company has just spent $90 million expanding one of our lines, which is like a manufacturing line. 2 reasons. One, we're at capacity. So the demand for lightweight construction, mainly along the eastern states, has grown astronomically. As block sizes become a lot smaller, people are going up. Our products tend to lend themselves really well once you go 2-story and above. This is where there's a little bit of a disconnect with probably what's happening here still. Most of your buildings are still single-story. Most of them are core-filled block work. So we are seeing, you know, challenges in this market as opposed to going to Melbourne or Sydney, or even Adelaide, where medium density developments, where they're doing, you know, 15 lots, maybe 5-6 metre frontages, double-story, triple-story. The ground level might be brick, or brick veneer is quite common. But then the minute they go to the 2nd story, they start looking at products like aerated concrete, which is like a CSR Hebel product or equivalent. They start looking at composite panelling, whether it be a metal sheet, aluminiums, etc. Or they'll look at fibre cement, and fibre cement gets a lot of traction. Foam's another product that we're seeing a lot in the eastern states. Not huge in SA, obviously not big here, but that's that rendered look, and then having like a foam panel. So there's some various products that are used, all considered part of a lightweight umbrella that we compete with.
James in from Kingspan.
Oh, okay, I saw him before.
Yeah, he was showing us the foam panels, the lightweight panels that he had.
Right.
Aluminium. Is that
Yes.
what you mean by the foam? Then the insulation with the render.
That's an example, because they're obviously big in the insulation space, more so than the cladding. They dabble a little bit. But what I was referring to is examples like that, as well as where they just have a foam panel. It almost looks like a cool room in the way that they build them. And then they've got a mesh on the exterior. There might be a 50, 75, 100 mil foam panel. And then they texture coat it to give it a rendered look. You can only give it one finish. You must texture it. Yeah, so they might have systems where they're bundling it in with their product to create thermal and acoustic ratings and all the rest of it. So a lot of suppliers like myself are here right now because obviously tonight's the Master Builder Awards, which you know we're a member of, and it's part of the association. They're an industry partner. So tonight a lot of the builders, both from commercial and residential, get together. A heap of awards are announced in different categories, and you know, Kingspan, James and others come up obviously to support the builders and those that have used our products. So I think that's on at the casino tonight from 6:30 onwards. They expect about 650 people. There'll be designers there, architects, there'll be, you know, builders, commercial, channel. Yeah.
For different categories of housing and commercial.
You can come for we can come for a drink after. My shout. So yeah, so that's what that's all about. But as a business, we did net sales of 1.8 billion in March 18. We are the largest fibre cement manufacturer in the world. We've got about 75% market share here in Australia. So, you know, a lot of that is because of the history of the business. We've been around for so many years. We haven't had competition knocking on our door up until maybe 30, 40 years ago. And there's a small number. The barriers to entry, given the type of product that we manufacture and how difficult it is to manufacture, handle, etc., makes it a difficult business to just step into. And unfortunately, that's been an edge for us, along with innovation and all other divisions of the business pulling together and just keeping that market share right up there and continuing to work with the builders and designers to just increase the penetration of our products in the market.
How many of you had heard of James Hardie before you started the course?
I still know.
You have?
You've been on business with, yeah? Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
I've always been in this industry, so I always wonder.
Yeah.
How often do people know these companies?
It's an interesting question because James Hardie obviously has had a lot of media attention as well, some good, some bad. So we've had media attention around in the early years. All the fibre cement manufacturers were the biggest, but were producing fibre cement with asbestos. So there's been a lot of media.
Oh, Hardie's Fibre Life.
Wow, yeah, okay. So, yeah, okay. We don't have asbestos cement shit. Oh, wow, I could take a photo of that. So, I mean, and that was the norm. There were many companies globally that would use it for all sorts of different things, brakes and in mining. It was in a lot of pipes. It was in all sorts of things. We were obviously a massive part of using it because we did a lot of eave sheet back then, a lot of compressed fibre cement sheeting. A lot of people were exposed to it because they used to cut it, plumbers, tilers, carpenters. So unfortunately, the exposure that our product generated meant that we probably had the largest amount of cases where we've affected people from its exposure to the bad things within asbestos. That stopped in the mid-80s officially, I think, when it was, all came out. The manufacturing process has changed. I've heard from a lot of people in the industry, people that have been in it for a long time, that the product was far stronger back then, and that the actual asbestos product, whilst extremely harmful, was unbelievable in its performance capabilities. It was a very strong product. So it was difficult for our business to come up with an alternative and still maintain that sort of durability that asbestos provided. We use sort of almost looks like a cardboard pulp now, cellulose. We'll go through all the things that make up fibre cement. But yeah, obviously that product quickly got ripped out once it was discovered to be quite harmful. So we are a publicly listed company. We're in the top 50 on the ASX. Market cap of, I think it's over 7 billion now. All of our products that are here are manufactured in Australia or New Zealand. More so now, we used to have a couple of products manufactured in New Zealand. Now with the extension of the line that I mentioned earlier, probably 95 to 98% of the products are all from Australia. Whoa. So this is very relevant to this market. Why our products are so popular is they've been tested, tried for many years and trusted by a lot of builders that have used the products, a lot of homeowners that have enjoyed, obviously the performance of the products. And they're really designed to combat the harsh conditions of Australia in general. So up here, obviously, termites are a big thing. Sun is a huge issue, the UV. Moisture is a big issue. Being a fibre cement product made, in large part by Portland cement, sand cement, obviously it ticks the boxes in terms of resistant to termites, rotting, resistant to moisture, impact resistant. So it has a lot of value for this market. It has a lot of value for the remote communities within your market. So we use a lot of these products in the remote Indigenous housing in terms of the internal lining rather than being plasterboard or sometimes block. We would tend to see 9mm Villaboard, which is an internal lining product, or Versalux used, because it's quite hardy and durable. So that whole maintenance thing becomes an important factor as well when you're specifying these products for certain applications. Try not to go backwards here. Done. This is where it's a little bit different to what you see here, so apologies for that. But essentially, if we want to keep it simple, you've got the lightweight construction methodology, which essentially is the cladding on the external part, a vapor permeable, so a sarking, right, a weather barrier, then a stud. Ignore the timber frame. We use 45-90 timber typically in the south. Here, you guys have got 75 by 36 steel frame. Again, timber not common because of the termite issue. So in your scenario, you would have a steel frame, typically a light gauge steel frame, and then on the internal lining, we have 10mm plasterboard. That is the way the larger part of Australia build. That is not the common way things are built here, not the common way things are built in far north Queensland, and probably not super common in WA either because they're a double brick market in WA by default. That is changing for all sorts of reasons. The cost of brick and brick layers is continuing to be on the rise. They're almost pushing themselves out the market. The thermal and acoustic, or the perceived thermal and acoustic properties that come with solid brick is also being, I guess, attacked by alternative systems like this, and we're getting better as companies like Kingspan, James Hardie, Fletcher Insulation, plasterboard companies come together and create systems. Then we can achieve some really good R values and all the rest of it. So we're starting to really push back on that perception. It really is a perception in the market that solid performs better in certain areas, acoustic, thermal, etc. But we've got a lot of scientific evidence now which suggests that we can achieve just as good, if not better, by combining a series of products. See, the lightweight looks like that. A masonry obviously is the masonry cavity stud insulation, internal lining, and then you've got your double brick. In your scenario, you would have a 200mm core-filled block rendered externally, or textured externally, rendered hard plaster internally is a common residential way of building. If you go to any of the new display villages like Zucoli and those areas, a lot of the builders would typically be doing block work. Even if you look at a lot of the DHA, the defence housing, they tend to all follow the block work construction up here. And a lot of that's due to Cyclone Tracy and what that left behind. People were just really concerned about going into a framing system because they're worried that the house will blow away. Definitely not going to happen. They've been proven time and time again not to. There's all tie downs and everything that's required up here. However, it's convincing the consumer that you're getting just as good a product or performing product, thinner walls, greater internal footprint, better for airflow. As an alternative, it's difficult, and the builders aren't always receptive to change because they're worried about the market acceptance. So if they build a display home a little bit different and go this way, who's going to buy it? The builder down the road is going to tear me to shreds and say that I'm building a cardboard box essentially. So it's a long process up here to get them to change. And 20 years ago, it was the same in other parts of the country. We're just seeing that shift more and more in our favour in the last probably decade.
So the shift is from heavyweight construction, blockwork with slab on ground, to lightweight construction, a framed construction, whether that be timber or steel.
Correct, yeah. And it may be slab on ground, may not be, but typically they are.
So we have a long history here of the elevated house.
Yeah, I see a lot of that.
Which is very much a framed structure,
yeah.
And there's still quite a lot in the older suburbs.
Yes.
So we are used to seeing it, but the newer suburbs have gone with the blockwork. I believe it's because a lot of the builders have specialised in blockwork. Since Cyclone Tracy, it's been the common form of construction.
They're geared that way.
Specialised in it, and now the talent and
it's all there.
Knowledge is all there for blockwork.
It's very quick and efficient. It's quite bizarre. If we built the way Darwin built down south, it would be just as difficult for us to do it your way as it would be, from what I can tell, you guys doing it our way out of frame. The market hasn't geared itself in that direction. The number of available trades that do carpentry work, etc., is far fewer up here. The knowledge around all that is obviously far less, and therefore the speed of construction on site is affected by that, and therefore the builder will tend to lean towards what they've got plenty of bricklayers, plenty of renderers. Why complicate the matter? So we're a bit against the current with all those factors as well. So some of the benefits of lightweight, I'll go through them. It's sensitive, isn't it? Well, but it's funny, I'll go down and it goes up. That's okay, we'll get there. Okay. Talking about block, so our product's got a lower embodied energy. This is an energy consumed by all the processes associated with the production of the product. So it's equivalent to many years of operational energy. So generally, lightweight construction uses less embodied energy than traditional construction methods. So that means less fossil fuels burnt, reduced greenhouse gases emitted into the environment, which is obviously a big plus. So it's a big green star tick from our end in terms of the way we manufacture and what goes into it, and how much energy is used.
Did you know that a timber frame to an elevated floor can have up to half the embodied energy of a concrete slab?
So it's quite significant, quite significant. Minimal impact on site. So because going back to how the older suburbs were built, it allows you to have less need for excavation, cut and fill, because you can sort of work with elevated and uneven sloping sites. Helps retain trees and other vegetation in certain instances, and limits the effect of stormwater flow through a site. So there's some advantages when you do get away from, slab on ground. If it is done on stump, then obviously there's a lot more airflow that comes in underneath the home as well.
You see that longer elevated houses, so you like that airflow coming underneath the floor. Really
good for moisture and heat. Larger internal footprint, this is a big one. This is one that we often harp on about. So when you look at other conventional methods with block up here, 200 mil wide, if you go back to that lightweight construction methodology where you've got a system which is just a stud, cladding attached direct, fixed to stud, 10 mil plasterboard, you're talking about a wall half the thickness of a block work. Why does that help? As blocks become smaller, and we're seeing obviously smaller and smaller allotments with developers subdividing a lot smaller lots, the internal footprint becomes more important, because the thicker your walls are, the less the inside, obviously, space availability is there. So we like to push that on an average 120 odd square metre home, that you should be able to pick up another 7 or 8 square metres of internal footprint, moving to a lightweight cladding option or lightweight construction option as opposed to conventional. So that's a big one for us in more populated areas, and as Darwin continues to, I guess, tighten, then we might start seeing a shift come by nature, just because people are saying, hey, give me more room inside my home, how can we do it?
I feel like we're on the boundary of that already, because our lot sizes are getting down to 300 square metres.
Yeah.
The blockwork homes are being built to zero lot line.
Yeah.
And you end up with these two blockwork homes
each other,
almost touching each other.
Yeah.
And we're still building single story. If you really want to, we're almost using the entire site
for a house,
for internal space.
Yeah.
Realistically, if you want to have more external space, you need to go
up. Yep, correct. But then there's a cost factor.
There's a cost factor.
And most of the markets
has been very high here. So they've been trying to limit that as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it amazes me how expensive it is to build here. Greater design flexibility, obviously, because there's more products that you can bring into the design. Less trades. Most of our products only require a carpenter and a painter in most cases. So we reduce the need for the wet trade and the amount of people involved in the process of building, so better for the supervisor and the speed of the job. Go on through that. What is it made from? So fibre cement is made from cellulose fibre, Portland cement, ground sand, some additives and water, and that's all there is to it. That's where it goes back to that embodied energy and what goes into the process of manufacturing. If you jump on YouTube, you'll see how it goes through the machines on a big conveyor belt. We pick up the slurry and it sort of runs down the belt, gets cut, gets sort of compressed and comes out the other end after going through a kiln and a drying process, and that forms the sheet. So you can always jump on and see, but there isn't much that goes into the product. It's a very basic product. We've talked about that. Some of the key benefits: resistant to fire. It's not fire. It doesn't have a fire rating, should I say. Often people get mistaken by resistant to fire and a fire rating. We can achieve a fire rating, but we need to bundle it with other things. It might be a fire rate insulation. It might be a fire rate plasterboard. There are ways to create a 30-minute, 60-minute, 90-minute fire rating, what we're saying here is we're non-combustible, essentially. So if you light a match and put it against our product, it won't torch. So we're resistant to fire, resistant to impact, moisture, rotting, and termites. So all tick, tick, tick for Darwin, obviously. So now we'll go to the product portfolio. I'll run through a bit of this quickly. Like I said, we've got a lot of products, not 3 or 4. There's a lot. So I'll go through a few of the different products and the looks that you get from these products. Then we'll jump onto Excel. I'll quickly show you that portal and what the tools in there are. And then, yeah, happy to get any questions. And please ask along the way now as well. We've got 3 main divisions, brands within the product range. You've got the James Hardie bundle of products, which are your core products, essentially. We've had them for a long time. About a decade ago, the Skyen range of products were launched, and they've been hugely, hugely successful. They grow, on average, double-digit year on year, so we're having, and it continues to grow. They now represent about 30% of our overall business, so they are absolutely flying in terms of their performance. And then we've got a small range of architectural internal products, which we haven't overly pushed, but they are available. So there's some, we'll go through them individually. The most common one that you would see out here is HardieFlex. HardieFlex is a 4.5 or 6 mil. Typically here you use a 6 mil. Flat sheet, fibre cement product. It can be used externally for cladding on gable ends. Can be used in eave sheet applications as well. Under your eaves they're all fibre cement, and it's just joined with a PVC or an express joint and then screwed into the frame.
I didn't see that the other day. We were on site and we saw
HardieFlex?
the joins in the panel.
The PVC joins.
Yeah. I can't remember which building it was on.
Was it the showroom?
If we walk around here, we'd probably see it.
Oh yeah, you definitely would.
You'd see it around here somewhere. There aren't many houses that don't have flex somewhere on it, especially if they've got eaves. Pardon?
No.
Oh.
So the soffit lining?
Soffits? Yep. It could have been the soffit. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You might have seen it
It's
there.
on the elevated house somewhere.
So the soffit could be this.
I can't remember where it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it's typically used.
No.
HardieTex is, if you ever go into Bunnings, you see packs of blue board. That's HardieTex. It's just a rendered 7.5 mil product. Well, sorry, it's not rendered. It's a blue board. We put a die in it. It's got a rebate along the long edges of the sheet, designed to take a tape mesh rendered finish, and you get that lightweight option whilst providing a rendered look. So often bulkheads, you'll see HardieTex used a lot because it removes the need for steel lintels and so forth. Above garages, roller doors, they'll put that in lieu of having to, again, put a lintel, brick, and then render. So areas like that, you'll see it mainly in our frescoes. They'll wrap around the side of that. And look, you can clad a whole house with an upper story. Extensions, people often use HardieTex as an extension if they want to render finish, but the product must be rendered. So it's a substrate designed to take a render application.
So for all intents and purposes, when you look at a house clad in this, it will look the same as a masonry finish.
Correct.
Render finish.
You wouldn't know, I mean, unless you tapped it or looked at it, there's no reveal on the window, you might start thinking that potentially it's a lightweight fibre cement sheet behind it, but yeah, you shouldn't visually be able to pick the difference. EasyLap is a product we released a few years ago. Essentially, it's a mil thicker than HardieTex, but rather than using a trowel wet trade render, you can just use a high build texture paint. There's a shiplap join which you'll see below the window, and they're above it too, which is at the width of every board. We've got a bit of a tongue and groove detail. That's a cost-effective alternative. People don't want to bring in the wet trade, or they're worried about cracking because there's a lot of expansion contraction due to heat here with the frames. Then this is a good option to get a rendered look at a much cheaper rate, get rid of the renderer, and just paint it yourself with a special roller and a thick paint to achieve a similar look. You're not going to get the monolithic look because you're not setting the joints and flushing them between each sheet. You're going to have that sort of express joint, control joint detail there essentially. but that also allows for a lot of movement, so that has been very well received. It's also the only product that we use or that we warrant as a substrate to tile onto externally. So if you're doing stacked stone or a bit of a feature with tiles outside the front, which you'll see on a lot of houses, and there's not block work behind it, then they would often be using an Easy Lap to get that to achieve that look. And we've got a special guide around that. We have a number of weatherboards, which is probably what we're most known for outside of HardieFlex. We have a series of products in the weatherboard range that differ from 7.5mm up to 16mm. 7.5mm is your HardiePlank product, 16mm is your linear product, which is a premium cladding option. It's almost where you get that Hampton style from the US, that picturesque Hamptons home with lots of windows and lots of timber. They used to be made out of wood many years ago. It's that real holiday feel. They're a nice looking house actually. They've got a real, I don't know, warmth about them, I guess, and that provincial look's coming in a lot of the states, and as a result that tends to be pushing up the demand for Hampton style homes. Queensland is crazy for them. Melbourne and Sydney are starting to catch up. Adelaide still were a bit behind as well with designs, but the interest is certainly increasing for that type of home, and with all the TV shows on at the moment, they tend to push that look a bit as well. So that's serving us quite well. In the prime line, there's 4 different profiles. They all have their own, I guess, sort of different look, which you can see down the bottom there. But essentially, they're a 4.2 metre plank, various widths, various textures or grooves to give them a certain look. So you've got the Summit, Newport, Heritage, and Chamfer. So that's what they are. Then you've got the HardiePlank, which has been around for forever and a day. There's a 230 and a 300 wide. Again, these are all 4.2 long. We've got a wood grain, a wood grain, a rusticated, an old style, and a smooth. The smooth and the wood grain are the most popular. Often you'll see, demountables were commonly clad like that. If you go to a holiday park, like a cabin set up near the beach, often they'll have HardiePlank as a cladding option for the cabins. And a lot of the lightweight transportable homes that used to go out rural, again, were quite common. The farmhouse and that were quite commonly clad with HardiePlank. It's a cost-effective cladding alternative without going into bricks and into some of our Scion products, which are much more expensive. So a lot of extensions on homes will also use HardiePlank. So you'll see a bit of that around. And yeah, wood grain, smooth, old style, and rusticated.
I think HardiePlank wasn't in the Deemed to Comply manual up here for a long time. That's why I don't think
you haven't seen much of it now. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a good cost-effective alternative if you want that weatherboard look to some of the other options we've got, definitely. And Bunnings have got them always on their shelf. If you go to the fibre cement section next time you're in Bunnings, some of these products we're talking about that may not have meant much to you before today, hopefully now when you walk past you'll be like, okay, that's HardieFlex and that's HardiePlank, and you'll see them there. So we don't supply direct to the builder. We have distributors. Bunnings is obviously one of them. They now exclusively hold James Hardie Fibre Cement. They used to share the category with BGC, which is a WA-based business. They've since lost that right, I guess, or that contract, and now we fully support nationally all the Bunnings stores. We already had probably 70% market share in there already. Now we've just picked up a few extra lines. And HardiePlank's obviously one of them, because there's a lot of people like DIYs that play with this product and do little improvements on their homes themselves. This isn't a super common product anymore, so I probably won't go through that, but that's a bit of a textured look. It's not very attractive, and it was more really now used when someone's trying to copy it or match it against a part of their home that they've already got it on. Not so much people asking to, redo their house that way.
It's like the cladding that's on my veranda. Remember I showed you the other day? Oh, yeah. Isn't it? So that texture.
That texture through it.
We still don't know who made that product. It's been bought the house. So.
Right.
Yeah, but very similar.
Very, yeah. Well, yeah, could have been ours. Could be the stucco. Yeah. So that was designed to look like trail render, but
maximum?
It doesn't really. You've got the PVC joiners in it that, you know, in one little section it could probably pull it off a little bit. But, yeah, then there's the bottom on the texture line, the panel clad. Again, I don't see much of it, not here or anywhere else. I've gone around the country. But 30 years ago it was, yeah, semi-popular. In the commercial space, this is what you will see a bit of. The Hungry Jack's. So McDonald's in Palmerston at the moment is getting a full face, well, it's brand new, it's all steel frame. The whole outside of it, if you ever go past any Maccas, but especially that one, it's all Exotec. Exotec's a 9mm compressed fibre cement, it's what we call a CFC, standing for obviously compressed fibre cement. We press it in the manufacturing process to increase its durability and obviously ability to take impact, because often this is in shopping centres, specified in drive-throughs like in a McDonald's or a KFC drive-through, anytime fitnesses, those sorts of things, but also high-rise buildings will also use it as an external cladding solution. No, they've got the Palmerston Hospital had Versalux, a bucket load of Versalux in the Sophites, and they had some Exotec along the side, but they had a lot of Alucobond. They had about a lot of aluminium composite. There was a small little wall on one of the entrances which had a bit of Exo. Yeah, there was a bit. Yeah, there was a little bit, but majority of that was aluminium, which is again a similar. This is an express joint panel look system, 9mm thick board, done on a top hat, very commercial.
Are you familiar with this when you look at commercial buildings, that you see this kind of paneling system on the buildings? You express the joints. We talk about express joints. That's the grid system you can see on the panels. That's where the panels are joined together.
You'll see a lot of this now. Yeah, a lot of commercial have got this looking.
I think once you've seen it here, you'll go, oh, I bet that is.
Yeah, yeah. How we achieve that look is on the horizontal, we use a backing strip, which is like a aluminium black metal flashing. That is stuck to the board to create the horizontal join. And then vertically, we run top hats. Normally, they'd go over a girt, and you'd run a top hat vertically down with a gasket. So that it's a reverse top hat, and it's got a gasket that sits through the middle, which is black, acts as a flashing to obviously, or a gasket to avoid moisture going in, and then that gives you that express join look vertically, and then use 10mm packers to create that grid feature that you can see there. The good thing about it, you've got control joints around every board, so from a movement point of view, it ticks a lot of boxes for commercial, because typically it has a really good long life, and the maintenance factor is quite low because you don't have to worry about cracking and things like that. So it does look good. It does. You can change the colour because we don't pre-finish any of our products. So if you paint it, because let's say Monument Grey is really popular today, but tomorrow light latte colours become popular, then you're able to change the colour of the building and give it a completely fresh look. You can't do that with some other composite panels which are pre-finished or metal cladding. Yeah, you're gone. So that's, you know, these are non-combustible. There's a lot of things now around a lot of the buildings, like in London, that have torched. One in Docklands that went up in flames. It's a polystyrene, and the glues that they use in those aluminium, some of, not all, because I like aluminium composite panelling, so I'm not saying all of them. Some, especially the imported ones, which weren't properly regulated, had issues where they, the minute they got a bit of heat, the building went up in seconds. That can't happen with these products because they are non-combustible, they're fibre cement.
The express joint on these, the joint itself is waterproof, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like a rain screen, it's absolutely waterproof.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Because of your gut,
the gasket for the horizontal, for the vertical, and the backing strip on the horizontal, and then they're done with polyurethane sealant. The gasket doesn't need to be, because when you screw into the top hat, it creates a seal anyway. It's designed that way. So you must only use our top hats. But the horizontal is done with the flashing. So that's Exotec. Comtex is exactly like the blue board we went through before, the Harditex, only it's a commercial version. So it's 9mm thick, designed for render. It's a yellowy colour board. And again, it's just a rendered option in lightweight.
So if you want to render these panels, you don't have any joins. You can't see the joins anymore. It becomes like a masonry finish.
Correct. And that's what it's designed to do, look like a rendered masonry wall. Every so often, you need control joints, obviously, in both directions. I think it's every 5.2 or 5.4 metres, you need a vertical control joint, and every 3.6, you need a horizontal. HardieFlex went through that. That's just the eave sheets. Here you can see it done with a timber batten. More commonly, you'll see with the PVC joiner that you'll probably, when you went to your place, and you'll see that they normally join it with a PVC, not with a timber batten. But
so this is the strip that you can see down.
That's if I can use that. Oh no, that's not. I'm worried to touch that. Oh.
Welcome to my life.
Very sensitive, isn't it? So wherever this is, these strips all through here, the boards are 3 metres by 1200, typically 3 metre by 12, they might be 24 by 12, 21 by 12, or 900 depending on the spacing, but call it a 3 by 12. So at the end of each sheet, when they butt joint two together, you can either put this thin, slim, sleek timber batten, or we have a PVC joiner, which is like a moulding, and you lock the two boards into it that way. It's up to you, what look you prefer. But that's how when you go around eaves, you won't typically see the timber, you'll typically see the PVC jointer. Villaboard is an internal wet area lining product. We use this in bathrooms. Again, this is all on frame. We use these in bathroom areas, shower cubicles. Often it used to be used behind a splashback in a kitchen. The good thing about this over a plasterboard product is when you rip the tile off, you don't take the wall with you because it's not a paper finished product. So, you know, a lot of commercial buildings will use Villaboard. A lot of schools will use Villaboard in their hallways because you don't have to tile it. There's a 9mm board. You flush it and it looks essentially like plasterboard. It's a flat finish product that you flush and paint or tile over. So often where there's high impact areas and they've got steel frame internal walls, they will use Villaboard instead of plasterboard to help with impact or tile applications or wet area applications.
So can I just all draw your attention to the Villaboard? So in any of our projects where we've got wet areas, bathroom areas, in lieu of the plasterboard, it's this CFC product, the Villaboard that you would be using for lining, internal lining.
So what was the product before? What's the external one?
HardieFlex. So one's used internally, which is the Villaboard, and it has a recess in the product, so it's got a rebate in it to allow you to flush it. This here doesn't allow you to flush it, doesn't have a rebate in it, so it's just a flat square edge board all the way around that you either use the timber or the PVC. But when you start talking internal, obviously people don't want to see PVC joins, so we scribe the long edges of the sheets, flush over them with like a base coat and top coat, and then either tile it, paint it, whatever it may be. So it would just look like it looked like the wall there essentially, or this wall here, shall I say? It's closer.
Or when you're applying your waterproofing, you'd be painting that onto the Villaboard
Yep.
and then tiling over that.
Correct. Yep. It is our biggest selling product, and we've had it for long. It represents close to 30% of our sales.
Wow.
So Villaboard's massive.
In all wet areas.
Oh yeah, it's massive.
So it's basically like a
6mm FC.
CFC,
Yeah.
what it is.
We call it an FC. It depends on the definition of what people call. Yeah.
Call everything a CFC.
Yeah, everyone does, right? So it's confusing a little bit because most architects, if not all, call any fibre cement CFC. So they'll just write on there 9mm CFC. The problem when you do that is that the only 9mm, if we call CFC by definition and say that it's compressed fibre cement, then by the true definition of the word, there's only two products that we have as a compressed fibre cement. One's our flooring, which is HardiePanel compressed, and one's the Exotec, which you just saw before, as the external commercial cladding with the express joints. They are the two only true CFCs by that definition. I think there is another definition which contradicts what I'm saying a little bit. But from our point of view in the manufacturing process, that's how we define CFC. FC is just fibre cement. Everything that isn't compressed during the manufacturing process comes under the FC range, which is fibre cement. and that's everything outside of the Hardy panel compressed flooring and the 9mm Exotec.
Okay.
Just FYI.
That's something new myself.
Yeah.
Because I call everything CFC.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Standard.
It is an industry standard. Yeah, it is. And when people just put on 9mm CFC onto plans, the problem we've got is you can have 9mm Versalux, you can have 9mm Villabord, you can have 9mm Exotec, you can have 9mm Axon. So what 9mm CFC are you referring to? We really need you ideally to write 9mm Exotec CFC, or
And that is the correct process to specify a product.
You know.
Any product.
and you can put or equivalent.
The that you're doing now, I'm happy with just CFC
CFC.
sheeting, but it is good for you to know in the back of your head that there are lots of different brand names on all of the different CFC sheetings, and a company like James Hardie has lots of, as you can see, in their range for all different applications. If that's all you take from today, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that is probably the biggest, most important thing for you guys, is that just saying, FC and pointing an arrow to a wall that says FC, even if you just give it the thickness and the FC, there are so many products that are that thickness in FC. So what is the look you're looking for? If specifically you want Hardy Flex, then, most of the time we'll know because we'll see 9mm CFC applied in an application which might be a wet area. Well, I know that's not going to be Exotec. I know that's Villabord. And then if I see it under a Safite, well, I know it's Versalux or Hardy Flex. And I'll go through, like, Versalux is just Hardy Flex, but a better standard finished product, which is more commonly used in commercial applications. Hardy Flex is more used just around resi, eaves, etc. But if you go to McDonald's or a big commercial site and you see a huge ceiling of Versalux, which we'll get to, and it's express jointed, that'll typically be 6mm or more commonly 9mm Versalux. And it's a square edge product. No one would know the difference between that and Hardy Flex, but it is a slightly better finished product and more commonly used in a commercial application.
Can I just also say, if you don't know
that's Versalux there
to use for a certain application, call him.
Yeah.
He'll help you.
Yeah,
He'll help
definitely.
you in your specifications. That is what these representatives of the companies do for us designers and building designers on a regular
Yeah, you don't have to be experts in it.
You said, this is where I want to use it. Can you recommend which of your product is the best one in this application? And then you write that on the drawing. Because you've got the full specification. It's better than just writing CFC and giving it a dimension, because then it's up to the builder to choose the product, and they can choose anything.
Yeah, they can often choose the cheap and nasty. Yeah. So this is the Versalux. That's not a great example because essentially that photo look. Can I just steal this?
Yeah.
This is a good example of Versalux. I reckon it's page 46. There you go. If you guys want to just sort of share that around, that's what you'll see with it. That's done with a PVC express jointer, a plastic joiner, to get that ceiling look in a grid detail again. Again, more of a commercial application. However, eave sheets, even using Hardy Flex, are using that extrusion, that plastic PVC express joiner, to give it a bit more of a modern look rather than getting rid of the PVC H-mold that you more commonly see in the past. So that's Hardy Break is a thermal strip that you use mainly to create a cavity and to create a thermal break between internal.
We talked about this earlier.
Oh, did you?
In the week, yeah.
It's a BCA requament, essentially.
So we said we can use the isolation, the blanket with the foam in between. Or that if you're using a metal frame, you really need to use something like this. The other option is that you just use a thermal strip, and you actually, it's self-adhesive, isn't it?
Yep, onto the sarking, the frame.
To the frame itself.
In front of the
That's
sarking.
really the same sort of thing.
Can't just take that too.
Yeah.
Because the other thing with this for our products, we don't warrant or recommend it because it's compressible. So this is fine when you're not screwing cladding through it, but if you're screwing cladding through it with obviously a Hardy drive screw or what have you, it compresses, so it kills the whole thermal break performance capability by doing that. This thermal break, you can put a truck over it and it doesn't compress. So you won't get waviness in your wall either by using this with cladding. Not saying you can't use this, but it's just not suitable for cladding products because of the way that it compresses. So it's the thermal break here, not that we're in the market to sell thermal break, but the reason we introduced it is to make sure that there is an option out there for builders to use a product that will complement our product, make sure it's not compressible, provide a cavity, and then tick the box with the BCA that you've been able to address the thermal break requirement. This is done wherever the internal lining, being your plasterboard, is fixed on the same stud or same frame, steel frame, as your external cladding. I don't know if that's the same here, but that's how it works. Yeah, that's how it works. But, NSA. Hardy Panel Compressed is the other CFC. There's just a flooring product, a wet area flooring product that we mentioned earlier. We don't see as much. Well, up here they go through tons of it, especially in the tons of it. Love and this is CFC. Love Hardy Panel Compressed up here. People use it on their porches. People use it when they're doing their demountables, when you go to Northern Transportables and NT Links and those sorts of guys. They use it a hell of a lot for remote community housing that they need to build, steel frame and then drop a floor on it. It's normally Hardy Panel Compressed. Same in a bathroom, you would use Hardy Panel Compressed. 15 mil, 18 mil, 24 mil, depending on the point load requirements. We have different thicknesses. Super heavy, need to pre-drill it. Most people curse when they're putting it down. However, it is hearty. It's like creating a slab on the ground on a steel frame.
So we use this in your elevated house. This is the product you'll be using in the wet areas in lieu of, because all the rest of the house
fixed to your joist.
Timber floorboards. So instead of the timber floorboards in the wet area, if you want to tile in your wet area, you need to use a CFC sheet, and this is the one, Hardy Panel
Compressed.
But there's lots of other applications for this.
There are, decking, balconies, right, verandas. But this is another very big product for your market.
Do you remember when we stood under the elevated house the other day and we could see the timber, we could see the compressed fibre sheet that was the floor? That's it. That's a fibre cement sheet. I don't know where that ever came from, but
it would not quite that thick, not that colour. That idea though, that's like a magnesium board or something. Yeah, we don't like seeing these. They've got. That's an imported product. Yeah, I can do that. I can do that.
That'd be great. We don't have any good samples.
I can do that. But essentially, it is exactly like that, but made out of cement. Just grey, probably a bit thinner, and then just 24 by 12. It's all in sheet sizes.
The same sheet sizes as that.
So this Prezzo I'm going to leave with you guys as well, so you can obviously keep this and just scroll through it. There's only about 50 slides. You can flick through it at any point to reference things that are of importance to any projects you're doing or assessments. Lastly, Skyon, the Skyon range of products. The Skyon was introduced, like I said, it says 8 years, probably over 10, 11 years ago. It is made a little bit different from the products we've just gone through. So it's got ceramic low density microparticles in it. That was designed specifically to create more of a lightweight alternative to some of the other products we use. Whilst not relevant here, it's designed to be gun nailed onto timber frame. We are working with steel frame manufacturers and fastening manufacturers to provide a solution to be able to gun nail these products onto steel frame as well, rather than screwing. But essentially the composition with the ceramic low density particles, it makes it a lot lighter and easier to install by being able to shoot through it, not pre-drill it, etc. And there's various products within that. Flooring is also within that now. So in residential applications, the Skyon Secura flooring has taken the sales away from Hardy Panel Compressed in many markets because it's lighter, it's a tongue and groove, you don't have to pre-drill it, you don't have to use a 2-part mega epoxy to glue bond the boards together. It's just it's a lot easier to put down.
So currently you have to apply it to timber structure, is that what you say?
Yeah. Oh, you can go to steel. No, you can go to steel. Yep, you can go to steel frames. Yep, both. You can use it for either. Yeah, absolutely. All our products can be used on timber or steel frame construction.
And I just thought that you said with the gun.
The gun nail, well, you can screw fix it to steel, but it's easier to timber because you can gun nail quicker, but not because you can't go to steel.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. These are the products within it. I'll just flick through them. Linear is the 16mm thick weatherboard. It's like the HardiePlank and the Primelines, but in our premium range. 150 and 180mm, 16mm thick with an overlap, so it gives you that weatherboard look, where the board is, or the fastener is concealed because that board above overlaps the board below, and you fix only at the top of the board all the way along. And so it's a concealed fixed system, and together they make 32mm when one overlaps the other, 16 plus 16. So around your window treatments, you need to increase the thickness of your picture frame, whatever that may be. We've got a product called Accent Trim that you use around the window, but you need to make that at least 38mm. That way the board doesn't protrude the window. So you need to just be mindful of those details when you're coming into windows with some of these products, and how that would finish off. It's pre-primed, ready for paint. Matrix is the residential version of Exotec that we went through before. It's 1mm thinner. It's done on a cavity trim, so screwed to a cavity trim rather than a top hat, and it's not compressed. So it's a residential version. It doesn't have the impact properties or the smoothness in the finish that you'd expect to see in Exotec. But for a resi application, single, 2-story, max 3-story dwelling, then Matrix ticks a lot of boxes. And again, it's done with a batten behind it, which we can't see there. But it's got a 70x19 batten that you screw into, and that batten screws back to the stud frame to give you that panel look exactly like Exotec. You'd be none the wiser looking at one or the other. Stria is a long plank product, not a shiplap, so it doesn't have an overlap to it. It's sort of a bit like Lego. One board locks into the other and you sort of go up. It's almost designed to look a bit like stone or a concrete wall, but with that sort of shiplap sort of join. Quite a nice looking product, actually, probably one of my favourites. We've got 3 profiles, a 325, a 405, so it's a bit wider, and then a 255 splayed, which is what that one there is. But again, it's an external cladding product, just another look, another alternative, 14 and 16mm thick, premium plank product. Axon is trying to get that timber look. That's in a board, so in a 3x12, 24x12, 9mm thick, either in a wood grain or a smooth finish, and they're 133mm apart, those little grooves. We've got a V groove, but the actual panel is in like a sheet size, so 3x12. Very common on upper level building, very, very common. So that's Axon cladding, and there's a 400 profile as well, but we probably don't sell much of that. This is the flooring that we see taking on the HardiePanel in resi applications where point load ratings aren't critical. 98% of double-storey homes in South Australia and many other parts use Skyon. It's used quite a bit up here too, for that matter, but use Skyon where they would prefer to use that over HardiePanel compressed. Easier to get up to the second story, easy for the guys to lift it up. They can shoot it down typically. It's tongue and groove. It's just a much easier product to play with. So that's Secura.
What's the difference between that and
if you've got, so this won't tick boxes in certain applications where there's a strong point load requirement. So for example, in a kitchen, a commercial kitchen where they've got big wash machines and that, or it could be a grand piano or a billiard table, this will not perform as well when you've got a point load requirement as it would if it was a compressed sheet. Normally in a bathroom you've got a toilet, a shower screen, a basin, no problem. Normally in a balcony in a residential you might have a couple of tables and chairs, no problem. The minute you go into commercial, a lighter weight version. Yeah, it's very much residential in a 90mm and a 22mm.
But its panel size is still 1800.
No, different sizes. So you got an 18x6, and sorry, a 27x6 and an 18x9, and a 24x6. So they are different sheet sizes as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, very much more driven for the residential market. External is just the only difference there is we put a mesh membrane underneath to give it a bit of extra enforcement, because obviously it's on a balcony, but otherwise it's the same product. And then lastly, and then we're done, and appreciate you guys hanging in there and listening to it all, we've got the In-Raw, which is a pretty funky product. It's a concrete-looking 27 by 6 mil. It's essentially 6 mil Hardy Flex, done with a clear seal finish, either in a satin or a gloss. It's dressed for only dressing internal applications, so shop fit outs, things like that. Could even be in a lift well, we've seen it applied to, just as a feature product. It's super expensive. It's not something you'd line a whole house with, but if you want that concrete industrial look, you glue it on with double-sided tape and polyurethane straight to the stud, and you're able to achieve a sort of a concrete look using that.
For restaurants.
Yeah, correct. It's a fit-out product, right? We haven't had huge traction with it, but if we don't hit that market, to be honest, otherwise we probably would. But it's not hugely our market. But yeah, it is available. And that's it. And then there's Axel, which is, can I jump on the internet on here?
Yep.
Right.
And the bottom there, you should be able to. If you just click here, actually, and just open a new tab because it's the recording. Yeah.
Done.
I don't want you to be overwhelmed by all those products. There's a lot of products there. But when we do say CFC sheeting, these are the type of products we're referring to. They're external cladding. And then you've also got the internal lines in that area, which is Villaboard. Villaboard is definitely the one that you should get familiar with. I have this little book, which is the latest of the James Hardie book, with all of those products in here and some information about it. What I've also went and done is added the Northern Territory deemed to comply number, so we know when we fix something externally in the Northern Territory that we need to have a deemed to comply number to say that it's fixed in accordance with the deemed to comply manual, and that specifies the centre of the fixings and the fact that these panels are actually in the deemed to comply mix. It much more easy to specify them in the Northern Territory. Otherwise, you would have to get an engineer to support you in your specification and be willing to follow Section 40 and design the fixing. But I have noticed in the last 2 or 3 years, I'm not sure when it happened, but James Hardie has got much more products now in the deemed to comply manual than they've ever done before, which gives all those designers a greater flexibility to specify them more readily and more easily. So if you are using any of the products in your project and you do want to specify them, do quote the deemed to comply number, and you're more than welcome to get this book in my office. The deemed to comply numbers are all there.
Just quickly, were there any questions from anything we've gone through so far, or sort of pretty comfortable? Like Sandra said, there's a lot of information, a lot of products. You don't need to remember any at all, really. It's just a matter of knowing what fibre cement is, that there are different applications with different products, that all the information is very readily available online, that now that you have a bit of an understanding of it, it'll be a lot easier when you're doing certain things. If you're trying to achieve a certain look, okay, I've got to think a bit deeper than just FC. Do I want to get a plank look? Do I want to get an express joint look? Do I want to achieve just a flat sheet look? Am I after a rendered look? And as you play with those sorts of things, then that will determine which product best suits your project. So what we've got here is Axel. I explained, I guess, before what it's all about. It's got all the intellectual property of James Hardie on it. If we just go to product information, so there's a bunch of tabs at the bottom. There's a inbox as well up top for us to communicate to you and have a bit of correspondence. Essentially what we've got here is all the products. So if, as an example, we go to Matrix and we want the installation guide. This is all downloadable data, by the way. Then soon enough, there we go. Soon enough, the installation menu will come up, and hopefully it will. The internet might be fighting a bit with this, but essentially the installation menu is there. It goes through the fixing, talks about cyclonic, all the rest of it, talks about the accessories that are required, details around windows, internal, external corner details, really gets into the nitty gritty, and it's all drawn, CAD drawn. So it's a shame it's not coming up. Here we go. There we go. I think that page was empty. All right. So out of example, where are we?
So companies.
There we go.
companies like James Hardy, like Kingspan, there was those companies who've had present. The reason I bring those companies in is because they really do have really good technical knowledge on their website. You will find lots of products out there that you just can't find the installation guides for, you can't find how they go together. They're really difficult to specify. So this is why I really do look at these very companies that really do have huge databases of information that designers can use.
And we've also got 5 engineers in Sydney that if you ever ring the 13 number, you'll get one of those 5 from Sydney. And they can always talk to you through Excel. So if we, just to quickly show you this, but there's some examples of details, corner details, etc. All of this you can grab through and drag into your projects and into your CAD files. If I just get out of this for a sec, if you go to talk to an expert here, then there are options. You can either call the 13, you can ask for a design guide, you can do estimating, or you can have a live chat and we can ask a question as simple as, how thick is this matrix, and they'll come back and say 8 mil thick for argument's sake, so you don't have to even pick up the phone. Under here there's various tools, I won't go through all of them, there's a pretty big site.
The CAD details?
Yeah, so the CAD details there, but if we just go probably here for it, we go, sometimes it's easier for me to grab it in here. So if we grab it there, go that one. If we have a look here, there's all your CAD details, and essentially we can download them.
.dwg files, you see that written up there. So as we know in CAD we use DWG files, and you can bring it into your CAD drawing as your detail.
Yep. So it's drop it. This was designed for architects. The system here originally was designed for architects and building designers. We've extended it now and plugged more into it to help engineers and to help builders and other people. But it was designed, if you go to CAD details, you'll see that it's got most of the...
Revit is in there as well.
Correct.
So you're looking at later in the year.
Right. Most of the softwares that you guys use, this is compatible with. So it was designed on purpose to assist with you with what you guys do, and not make you have to reinvent the wheel, that you have to redesign something we've already got a detail of. So now architects will just specify our product and then whack the corner. There might be more than one corner detail option, so they might pick the corner detail they want for that project, and then they'll just, instead of using a corner, box corner detail, they might want an express train. They'll pick that out of here, put it into the plans, and then the builder knows, okay, that's obviously what the architect's going for. So that's what this is all about.
Later in the year we'll be looking at detailing, how we really do the fine detailing on these corner junctions of our buildings, and this is when these details will really come into play, when you really want to see the nitty-gritty down to the millimetre details. There's
videos, and we've got a decking as well, talking about other products. We've got a decking product. That's okay. Oh, really? Yeah, so this is them putting down a fibre cement deck, which we call Hardy deck. So there's various videos, there's ones for Matrix, all sorts, that if you wanted to just see how people whack them together.
Yeah.
Again, YouTube, type it in, you'll probably find some stuff as well. But yeah, there's all sorts of videos in here, which again, you guys can quite easily click on it and get a bit of an idea of how things go together.
Your details cover steel frame as well as timber frame?
Yep,
great.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, so look, I don't want to bog you down with a whole heap of things. That's practically the most important parts for you guys, where the product information is and the CAD details, and then there's estimating tools and all sorts of cool stuff outside of that. So I can get you on this. I'll close out of it now.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for you guys to
if you guys want it.
Register on this website and be able to access all that information should you never need it for a project.
And then they'll email you too. So if you say, hey, can I have a detail for this, or I've got what do you recommend? Then you can go on the live chat and you can start having a chat with one of our guys in engineering and get an answer straight away. Give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm always happy to help any way we can.
It's part of our job as architecture technicians to do this research and talk to the companies and get the information from the companies and the products we're actually going to specify, and do the research and talk to them and get what they're find those parts of the project. Any questions?
thank you very, very much for your attendance and for listening. I appreciate it. It's not obviously always the most exciting stuff to talk about.